As some of you might have recently seen, I made some pretty bold statements in my last video.
My goal is to become the world's greatest zoologist.
So some of you might be asking, what exactly does that look like? And it looks like searching for a snake. Now I know what you're thinking, Zach, you're always looking for snakes. And this is true. But today, we're going to be looking for a rarer snake. My gosh, nothing has changed. You see, in Louisiana, we have some species that one might classify as unfindable in most cases. So, after looking at the snakes in my home state, I concluded a few species stand above the rest. Rainbow snakes are always brought up, but we already covered that one, practically too easy. So what if I never see another my entire life? Boom, check, what's next? The Louisiana pine snake. Yeah, that's like a 4 or 5 hour drive, and unless I make some phone calls, filming that legally is going to be really difficult. We're just going to skip over that one for now. So this really only leaves us with one reasonable option. The Louisiana Scarlet Kingsnake. You see, the Scarlet Kingsnake is a species many people would look for in places like Florida or Georgia to great success. And they're even relatively common in some places there. But Louisiana is right on the edge of where these snakes range. And so few people find them here that getting leads can be difficult. But I had decided, if I was going to be the best, I would have to target one of Louisiana's rarest snakes. Also, if you haven't, make sure to subscribe. I worked on this video for a really long time, and I hope y'all enjoy it.
Have a look at this. This is a perfectly good big old burnt pine stump. And this is a really good environment too for lots of different species. Now what this habitat is specifically known for throughout the southeast is scarlet king snakes. They are the absolute jewel of snake hunting. But Louisiana is the furthest west of that snake's range. And you might think, wow, this is some really nice looking habitat. They probably get some scarlet kings in here. It has been years since a scarlet king snake has been found in here, publicly at least. And it's just crazy. They are such a hard snake to find for. I've never found one in my home state. I've only seen them in Florida. And they are an awesome species. So the real question is, where are the scarlet king snakes in Louisiana?
I mean, if you think about it, these snakes are kind of like milk snakes, which I'm already pretty good at finding.
Milk! Milk, milk, milk! Yes! 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 Oh, yes! Check that out! Louisiana milk. That is a nice one.
And I've seen these snakes in their home range of Florida, so I'm sure finding one in my home state won't be too bad, right? I spent the entire summer looking for this snake without so much as a clue. Clearly, this is no ordinary snake hunt. Everything will matter. Conditions, timing, location, and the more I searched, the more I realized that I was going to have to pull out the big guns. To hunt for this snake, I would have to throw away my honor. Tin. This is probably the most effective way to find many different snakes. You've probably seen better snake hunters than me use this to find many species, and truth of the matter is that sometimes it is the only way of locating that needle in a haystack that you're looking for. And so, I got to work. It wasn't hard for me to locate enough to probably build a small house or two, and I was also able to find stuff laying around in areas already, but for consistency's sake, I set out a pretty obsessive amount in a few different locations that I thought might work.
Now, I have spent a ton of time, specifically this year, in this piney environment, and it's a really cool place. There's pygmy rattlesnakes, heck, there's even scarlet snakes, one of the tricolors. But scarlet kings, I've been looking for a lead to scarlet kings here, and I have a lot of people that'll tell me that they are here, but haven't seen any pictures, haven't seen any video, very little evidence of them being here besides their historic range being here. Been getting rat snake. There's a little rat snake. Can't just reach for him because there could be more of anything, including venom. away for a second. Some weird tiny pieces. Alright. It's a snake. Have a look at this little guy. Very, very thin. Can't imagine why he's so thin, but hanging out in that little top stack. Probably a yearling, honestly. This would be a Texas rat snake. They're very common here in Louisiana. Look at how small and cute. He's very skinny though. You need some water, bud? I mean, there's water everywhere, so I can't imagine he's dehydrated. Yeah, he's just thin, which is weird because it feels like he's got something in his belly right there. Well, that is definitely not a scarlet king snake, but honestly, I really don't expect this area to yield a scarlet king, or at least not anytime soon for me easily. It's a place that is searched for snakes a lot, and you know, there's some special stuff to be found out here, but scarlet kings are typically not on the list of things that are seen, even by people that are looking for them. So I think we're gonna go ahead and search some other areas. This is a cute little dude, and obviously it shows that there is good snake life out here. I see snakes out here all the time, but scarlet kings are definitely not one of them. New areas are definitely gonna have to be searched if I'm gonna find one of these little things. Look at that little dude. He is a noodle. He is a noodle. And the weather is obviously not always the best. You know, you can see everything's pretty waterlogged right now, so. Yeah, we're gonna put this little guy back and keep looking for our scarlet king. See you, little dude. Back in your tin. Boop, boop. No. In there. Boop, boop, boop. There he goes. Coolio.
After that, I decided to check out some mixed habitat I had previously scouted for snakes. The habitat didn't look too good, lots of smaller trees, but I've found a few snakes here before, so I decided, what the heck, I'll give it a shot.
This is probably the hardest habitat ever to search for a scarlet king snake. I'm probably not going to find anything here that I'm really looking for. I'm really just kind of observing habitat and comparing it at this point. But I do have some stuff set out here. I have found corn snakes here before, which is a really good sign. So, physically possible, yes. Is this going to be the area? Most likely not.
The stack had ants under it before. Oh my gosh! What? Is that it? Is that... Wait, that's not even a scarlet king. Yeah, just a heads up, this probably gets found just as much, if not less than scarlet kings in this part of the state. So, I guess that's a pretty big win. Oh, you're tiny. Don't escape, don't escape. I didn't even know you could get these in that. What? This was all ants last time. How?
Well, this is not actually what we've been trying to find. This might actually be a little bit rarer. This probably gets found a little bit less in this part of the region than the scarlet kings do, but this is a scarlet snake. Now that can be kind of confusing sometimes because it's like a scarlet snake and a scarlet king. They're both tricolors. What's the difference? Well, you can kind of see here, this one has a plain belly. The first thing that I saw was the nose, because these guys have a very pointed nose. That is the first thing I noticed, because at first I thought this was the scarlet king. I thought this was kind of the end of the hunt. But this is very impressive. I didn't even know you could get them in the areas like this. And this is definitely a new area for me to find one, being as this is only my second one in the state of Louisiana. Definitely the first one I've ever seen under tin. I didn't know that they even use that. I know that they like to dig under stuff pretty well, and he was actually in the ant tunnels under the tin, which is really fascinating actually. I didn't know that they would do that. Very, very cool little snake. They spend a lot of time underground, so not a lot of people are going to be seeing these snakes. And like I said, there are a few key differences. This is not a king snake species, and they mostly eat eggs. I can actually see something in his belly, because they kind of have a little bit of a clear belly as babies. And I think it's a little lizard or a little skink. He's got something very tiny in his belly. This is, I couldn't plan this. I really could not plan to find something like this out here. I mean, I feel like it would be easier to plan a scarlet king than it would be easier to find one of these. That's just how it goes sometimes. But, you know, that is just how it goes sometimes. Sometimes you find something you weren't looking for, and sometimes it happens to be a little bit harder to find than what you are actually looking for. Really special snake. There's nothing really much to say about it other than that. It's a very special animal. We had filmed an adult this spring, but still not my target. We're gonna put this little guy back, and we are going to continue on our very long hunt for a scarlet kingsnake. Very special though. This has got me hyped up.
After that massive win, I was feeling strong, so I headed to what I thought was going to be my best spot, which was not only some of my favorite looking habitat, but it also had more cover than any other area. Thinking my good luck would continue here and end my search before cooler weather started.
Snake in the water. What are you doing, dude? What are you doing, dude? This is my worst piece of tin. Decay snake. You can literally find these anywhere, under anything. He was under this. Corn. Woohoo! Look at the little guy. Oh, that's sweet. What's up, bud? Woohoo! Pretty little corn. Oh my gosh. This is a snake that actually has very similar habits and habitat to scarlet king snakes. This is a corn. Pretty corn snake, also called a red rat snake. They are a rat snake. Now in this part of this snake's range, they actually are fairly uncommon. They're everywhere in places like South Georgia and Florida, but here, pretty uncommon to see them. He's got a light grayish color. They kind of have that in this area. As it kind of starts getting more east, they kind of have a more lightish gray tinge to them, which is really neat. You'll see these guys in the pet trade very often, get that little checkered belly. They get about 5 feet long. They're mostly eating mice, but one of this size would probably be eating lizards. There were a bunch of lizards under this last time, and I didn't see any this time, so I'm going to assume that this little snake ate them all. As you can see, they will hide under human debris, so people will see them in barns and stuff like that pretty consistently. And they're just an overall friendly snake. Sometimes you get them where they will be a little bit bitey, but most of the time they are going to be like this. Very typical for them to just be perfectly chill the moment you find them. Hence why they became a very popular pet snake. Well, that is a great sign. Not a scarlet king snake, but definitely something that will live in the same areas as scarlet kings, and is a really, good tell that the habitat here has some snakes that like pine forest. All right, see, little dude. Got more stuff to check and hopefully scarlet kings to find. That is awesome.
And so, as my hunt continued, I would search far and wide through every single biome these snakes are known to live in Louisiana, thinking surely there must still be some around in my area. But my efforts were in vain. I found many species, many incredible animals in my efforts, but this target snake eluded me hard. If I was going to be successful, I was going to have to think in a way that nobody else would to find one of these guys. I started thinking, scarlet king snakes like a few things. Pine trees, lizards and skinks. In Louisiana, they enjoy mixed hardwood biomes. But they also typically love sand.
I don't like sand.
So I headed off to some river biomes, which are obviously full of sand. And I started searching the surrounding areas. I hiked, drove, and even sometimes swam. And then I found it. It was absolutely perfect.
Yo, this might be the area. Like, look at this. It almost looks like Florida. Little bit brushy, but like, it's Louisiana. I cannot be a beggar for perfect habitat. I am already noticing as a reason as to why this area would have scarlet kings in Louisiana, because Louisiana is unfortunately a highly poached area. First off, there's water. Second off, do you see how many mosquitoes there are if I just stop? Now, I'm not someone who typically has a problem with a lot of bugs. They just got a drop of blood. But this is bad, y'all.
As I thought back to my last scarlet king, I realized that the habitat was strikingly similar. Everything about here was perfect. There was one problem. I needed things to flip. And as stated before, it wasn't easy to get here. So was this it for today? Is it impossible for me to find them here?
Yeah, wait, is that a piece of tin? Is that a washing machine down there?
So apparently there was some super old abandoned stuff in these woods and perfectly good 60-year-old rusted metal just sitting there for the setting.
Somebody left this perfectly good tin here. Beautiful.
It was perfect. Even though this isn't even a fraction of how much I would set at my other spots, I still had good cover to check here now. I know these snakes, I know their relatives, and I know their preferred habitats. I would check this spot constantly, knowing that slight chance one would use it. It became routine at this point. I went every time with little to no expectation, and with the end of summer upon me, and with the cooler weather on its way, I would most certainly put this hunt on hold to go and film other wildlife for the channel. And then finally, on a day just like any other.
I actually moved these two pieces the other day, simply because it's gonna cool off soon, so that's probably when. Ooh! Ooh! Hello, buddy. Ah! Yo! The day. You're not a milk snake, are you? I didn't just catch a no, it's definitely a Scarlet King. Oh boy. This is probably one of the harder snakes to target in the state of Louisiana. This is a Louisiana Scarlet King. No different species, it's just a Scarlet King snake, same as what's in Florida. But finding one here is definitely a lot of work. It's got a bit of a deeper red than the milk snakes that I'm used to. Now most people recognize this snake more as the coral snake's mimic, which I think is quite unfortunate. I think they get a lot more rep for that than just being a rare and beautiful snake species. It's just a really cool snake, but that does apply here in the southeast United States for these snakes specifically to coral snakes and Scarlet Kings or Scarlets or Milks, is the red on black, venom black, red on yellow killifill. Now that doesn't really work out west or heck, and even some places north of here, but here, very specifically, it does work. And you can see the big red bands are touching the little black bands, and these got like a little tan it's not yellow. I've seen the ones in Florida, they have that bright yellow, and I've even seen some that are like a solid white, and this is kind of like a tannish kind of color. And look at this, he's got a really cool V pattern on it. He's got one broken band, the rest of his bands are pretty solid, but he's got one big broken band. Very, very interesting. Kind of looks like the ones from South Georgia. You'll hear that I kind of talk about other areas' snakes a lot, and I reference them because all of them look very different to someone like me who kind of spends time targeting them. The ones in Louisiana, I've seen ones with like a deeper red to their coloration. I've seen ones with high black. You can get a super amount of variation with this snake species. Now they're very whippy. He's calmed down now, and he's very relaxed. But they're a very whippy snake at first. He did try to bite me a couple times, but like I said, they are a non-venomous species. They are a constrictor. They will constrict their prey. I'm seeing a lot of fence lizards, anoles, and skinks around here. In fact, there were skinks under that the other day when I checked it. Maybe he ate, if they stayed, maybe he ate them. I don't know. But they've got an interesting build. They do have that king snake build, super strong, super grippy scales. Another thing that I'm noticing about this snake is he's got a big scar on the top of his head right here, or kind of down his neck, right there where the scales are kind of white and separated. And even his nose has a bit of scar tissue on it. And I'm not sure why that is, but there's also one thing that I've noticed very specifically, is snakes in sandy areas will oftentimes have a rough time healing up their scars because sand or other very tiny debris will get in and kind of wedge between the scales, creating more of a permanent scar. I've never heard anybody talk about that. It's just something that I've observed in super sandy areas, which if you look under the ground here, it gets very sandy very, very quickly. And that is what Scarlet Kings love. They love pine wood forests, hardwood bottoms with pine, and, well, sand. The first one that I ever found was actually just straight up on a sand dune. I don't think there was actually a pine tree in sight at the time. Maybe there were some smaller ones, but no big pine trees. Whereas here in Louisiana, they're going to want areas with some super big pine trees. This is, without a doubt, one of the rarest snakes that I could have targeted in this area, and it took a while, I tell you. Very similar hunting to a milk snake, but way less information. You know, obviously I've been doing that longer, and you know, it's just a special animal for sure. The information is probably very useful to know that they are in this exact area. It probably gives reference that there's more in certain areas, but this is the crown jewel of southeast Louisiana, a Louisiana Scarlet King, and it's an adult too. Now, one really good question that people ask is, why are these snakes so rare in the state of Louisiana? And there's a few reasons for that. One being, this is the furthest west that these snakes will go. I don't believe one of these snakes has ever been found west of the Mississippi River. I'm sure there's some arbitrary example of like one accidentally being found like in the 1930s or whatever, but realistically, you're never going to see these snakes west of the Mississippi River. Realistically, that is. But that means that this is the area where they start declining. Mississippi, they're a relatively numerous snake in certain areas, even in places like Alabama, South Georgia, and then obviously the core of their range being Florida. But the further you get away from that, the rarer they get. Up in Virginia, this is a super rare snake. Here, this is a super rare snake. So it's really a location thing. The second thing is habitat loss. What you'll notice is this little tiny patch of this really nice sandy habitat with big pine trees, it is the only place like this for a while. In fact, you go in right there, habitat changes completely. It's crazy. This is a very, very small area, and that's why I would assume that the Scarlet Kings here is because it's the right habitat and it was never disturbed in a way that the Scarlet Kings were removed from here entirely. I'm sure there's a lot less than there used to be, but the fact that they're even still here is quite shocking. All of the prep work for catching this snake eventually paid off. I'm hoping in years to come to be able to see a lot more of these snakes in my home state. They are pretty hard to find, but once you can figure them out, you might be able to catch more. And I'm hoping to specifically see more in this area and see this snake once again. An absolutely stunning snake. My favorite thing about this little guy is that red head. Because other than that, this does look a lot like a Louisiana milk snake. But when you look at that bright red head, it's just like, that is 100% a Scarlet Kingsnake. Wow.
This snake was really the pinnacle of my searching. This red phantom marks so much learning and exploring. Honestly, it really wasn't the snake in this adventure that mattered the most, but more what I learned trying to find it. And so, it was time to say goodbye to our newfound friend, but not goodbye to everything I had learned about him.
Well guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to go and check out the one we did with the rainbow snake a while back. That's one of my favorite rare snakes that we found. And also, don't forget to subscribe before you go, and we will see you guys next time. Coming to visit my buddy. It's actually officially fall. It's officially cooled off. And my buddy is gonna be hanging out. He's not under that one. He's probably under the bottom one. What? He should still be under. It just cooled off. He should be under stuff. Surely he's under like the top piece or something. Surely. No. It was a fluke? Bruh, I'm never gonna see that snake again.